Thank you so much for quieting down quickly. I certainly appreciate it. We're here this morning for about a half-hour program. We're talking about a pretty heavy topic this morning. We're talking about suicide and suicide prevention. You know, like I said, it is a heavy, heavy topic, but I believe everything you hear this morning, everything the speaker talks about this morning, are things that you need to hear as a young adult. Just give you some avenues and some strategies to use to take care of yourself and to take care of your friends if any of these things ever come up in your life. So I would really appreciate it if you would give the speaker your undivided attention, give her the utmost respect. Please don't talk or mess around while she's talking, because this is a very, very, very heavy subject, as I said. With that, I would like to introduce the student that's kind of spearheaded this whole effort. We have a student here at East. Her name is Jackie Herrin. She is a junior, and she's going to give you some of her life experiences and then introduce the guest speaker. So without further ado, I give you Miss Jackie Herrin.
As well as you guys. I've been working on creating this assembly since October of last year because I experienced some things when I was only 10 years old that I didn't want you guys to experience. I lost my 15-year-old brother Matthew to suicide because he lost hope and he became very depressed. He died a little over 6 years ago, yet even today my family and I still have many unanswered questions. There are always those what-if questions that we ask ourselves. He died exactly 1 week after school ended for the summer in 2006. And as a family, we were close, but like many families, we were separated through divorce. So we hadn't really seen or spoken to him since the previous December. Because my parents were worried about him, my mom had planned on going to see him on his last day of school to find out why we had not been able to reach him since the last time we had spoken to him. Unfortunately, my mom did not make it up to the school that day due to unforeseen circumstances. So some of the questions that we can ask ourselves are, if she was able to make it up to the school that day, would that have changed the outcome of things? Or if he had called us and told us that he is depressed, would he still be alive today? We still don't understand why he didn't reach out to us, especially to my mom and our dad. Why did his brain make him think that there was no other way out? Why did he have to? He had everything going for him. He was good looking, and he was popular, and he was surrounded by a lot of family and friends that just absolutely adored him. Since I wasn't old enough to help him at the time, I'm hoping that this assembly will help anyone out there who feels like they're lost, or that feels like they are depressed. Now, I can tell you that we love my brother, and that we know that he loved us. And I can also tell you that he was not trying to hurt us, but what I do not know is if he was trying to hurt someone else. If that was the case, I can tell you that the people most affected in this situation were our family and his friends. I've learned in the past 6 years through research and my own personal experience that when a person commits suicide, the people most affected by the death are the family and friends of the victim. Suicide is never a good way to get even with anyone. My brother's death was tragic, and it took me many years not to be angry with him anymore. I found Dr. Roeder from the Bellevue Psychological Associations to come here and talk to you today because it is my wish that another family never experiences what our family experienced. Please understand that there is help out there for depression. It can make you feel lost, and it can make you feel hopeless. But there is help out there for you. If you ever feel depressed, please tell someone. It can be a parent, a counselor, a teacher, or even a friend. Just help yourselves and tell someone. For those of you out there who hear that someone may be feeling suicidal, please help that person by speaking up and telling a responsible adult. Don't ignore the feelings, and don't ignore the cries for help. Now, I would like to thank you in advance for listening, and I would like to introduce you to Dr. Roeder. What we're going to talk about today
today is suicide prevention, and the main purpose of this is to let everybody know it can be treated, it can be avoided, and you can all make a difference. Now, we're going to talk about the ACT approach to this, which is acknowledge how somebody's feeling, care about them, and tell somebody. And we'll go over that in a little bit more detail. But here's the task that you're going to have at the end of this. 1-800-273-TALK. Let me hear it. 1-800-273-TALK. Oh, you've got to be kidding. Again. 1-800-273-TALK. Thank you. Thank you. It's a little bit different today doing this. You know, we've done this already for the freshmen, and we did it for the sophomores. The difference with you guys is in the past week we've had 2 suicides in the area. We've got the young man from Fremont who took his life, and we've got the young man from Bellevue West. Can I see a show of hands of people who knew the young man from Bellevue West? Okay. I'm very sorry for your loss. We're going to talk about that a little bit too. Here's the thing. You can help. Suicide is caused by depression. It's not caused by a single event. Depression is treatable, and you can make a difference for yourself or for a friend. We're going to go over the facts about suicide. We're going to talk about depression and its treatment. We're going to talk about the warning signs, and we'll talk about what to do, what to say, and who to tell. For those of you who are warning the young man from Bellevue West, we're going to make it clear that it was nobody's fault, okay? Most suicidal people give some warning of their intentions. Not everybody does, but some of them do. The problem is sometimes people will say something like, I hate this life, this world sucks, I don't want to do this anymore. And we don't know that that's what they're talking about. The best way to prevent suicidal behavior in a friend is to know the risks, take it seriously, and know how to respond. More than 90% of people who die by suicide are suffering from one or more psychiatric disorders, including depression, bipolar, or substance abuse. Depression and other mental disorders are recognizable and treatable, which makes suicide completely preventable. And the thing about depression, when we talk about this, we're not talking about crazy. Okay, depression is not crazy. Crazy is if you think you're Tupac. Depression is completely different, okay? So sometimes people come to my office and say, I don't know why I should be here, I'm not crazy, which is a good thing because I don't treat crazy. I treat normal people suffering from depression and other things. Suicide is never the fault of the survivor or a loved one. People die by suicide due to mental illness, difficulties coping with stressors, faulty neurotransmitters. No one takes their life because of a single event. Now with the young man from Bellevue West, his parents have talked about some drug abuse. That's the same thing we're talking about. When something happens in your brain that starts short-circuiting and you can't think rationally. Most suicidal people don't really want to die. They just want their pain to end. That's why most people, if they make a suicide attempt, are very pleased that they were rescued. I don't know anybody who's made a serious suicide attempt who wasn't glad that they survived it. People are not in their right mind when they die by suicide. They're not knowingly abandoning us. It's not like they're sitting there thinking, well, I have all these people, but none of them matter enough. They're not doing that. All they're thinking is, I'm in pain, I can't take it. Or they're just thinking irrationally because of other substances going on in the brain, like the drug abuse. You can help. Know the warning signs and act. Acknowledge, care, and tell somebody. What's that number?
1-800-273-TALK.
Thank you. Stinking thinking. This happens a lot, especially with teens. Things are going south and they think, if they're suicidal, well, now they'll be sorry. People will be sorry that they mistreated me. People will be sorry that they bullied me. They won't. Okay? The people that someone thinks are going to be sorry are not the people who are going to be sorry. The people who are going to be sorry are the people that loved you to pieces, not the ones that you think might regret their actions. That'll teach you to punish me. Sometimes kids make suicidal attempts and then say, if my parents weren't so strict, I'd be happier. That's not going to teach your parents to punish you. That's going to teach your parents to want to be with you 24/7 to make sure you stay safe. You'll never have me to push around again. Sometimes kids fantasize about their funerals, and it's not that uncommon, but they believe that, you know, everybody's going to be crying for me at my funeral, and they're going to feel so badly for how they treated me. Again, those people aren't going to feel badly. The people who are going to feel badly are the ones who always loved you and supported you. Now everyone will see how hurt I was. Well, you know what? That's right. People will see how hurt you were, but too late. The number one cause of depression of suicide is depression. Now, depression is more than feeling sad. Everybody feels depressed sometimes, and we use that word a lot. But depression is when you have at least 6 of these things going on for longer than a 2-week period of time. Changes in your sleep pattern, in your eating, in hygiene. If there's a kid you know who's always been fairly well groomed, and suddenly they're just looking all disheveled and dirty. Kids who stop eating, or kids who are constantly eating, they're trying to soothe that pain. Intense anxiety, agitation, restlessness. That's kids that are just, you don't feel right, you're just kind of hyper and nothing is working and you're really jumpy. Or feeling slowed down and lethargic, can't get up in the morning, don't want to do anything, sleeping through class. Teens often say things like, I'm bored, I don't care, nothing matters, it's all pointless. Those are things that you can listen for. Poor concentration, memory, and indecisiveness. At your age, memory shouldn't be a huge issue, okay? So if you're not remembering things that you normally would, if you can usually study for a test and do well, but now you're studying and you're not getting anywhere, that's an issue. Feeling hopeless or helpless or worthless. Those are the big ones. If you're feeling worthless, like the world doesn't need you, you need to tell somebody. And feeling excessive or inappropriate guilt. That's when you're taking responsibility for everything. You're looking back at things that are, you know, irrelevant and still feeling guilty about it. I work with a woman in her 30s who suffers from depression, and she talks about feeling guilty. She feels guilty because when she was 8 years old, she and her brother wanted a cookie, so she did that. One person breaks it, and then the other person picks what piece it was, but she picked the bigger piece and she broke the bigger piece for herself, and she's still feeling guilty about that. Okay, that's inappropriate or excessive guilt. Recurrent thoughts of suicide or death, that's a sign of depression. Overreacting to criticism, somebody who can't take the slightest thing without feeling like they've been attacked. Depression is not necessarily feeling down. Many teens feel full of rage, okay? They view everything negatively. They're very aggressive when they're depressed. We have that image of people as being depressed and weepy and sad. But there's another side to depression, and that's that agitated, angry thing. And it's when everything, no matter what you say to somebody, they view it negatively. Taking everything personally is a sign of depression. That's when people are saying or doing things that have nothing to do with you, and yet you feel like it was a direct insult to you. That's another sign of depression. Anhedonia. One of my favorite words. This is a short word. Anhedonia is the loss of feeling pleasure in activities a person would expect to find enjoyable. So there's a young man I work with who's got a significant depression going on. He's not doing well in school. He has some friends, but he doesn't really want to hang out with them. And he plays this computer game called WoW. You guys heard of that? And you have to have a subscription to it. So his parents bring him in, they say, we're really worried. What's going on? He wants to cancel his WoW subscription. And if you're big into WoW, exactly. That's what yeah. So that's a sign of anhedonia, because he's not finding pleasure in that. And that was his one thing, that he had pleasure in. And he says, forget it, I don't want to play it anymore. So then we knew that's a very significant depression, he's having anhedonia. Other examples are not wanting to be with your friends, quitting favorite activities, turning down offers to socialize. If you're feeling like you usually like to hang out with your friends and now you're always turning them down, they say, well, why? What are you doing? And you say, nothing. I just don't want to. If you have a friend who's always hung out with you, and now they're not hanging out with you, and they're not hanging out with anybody else either, that's another sign of anhedonia. Anhedonia is a sign that depression is not temporary, especially for your age. If you guys are not finding things fun that you usually find fun, that's not normal. And you need to tell somebody you need to get help, okay? Causes of biology, of depression are biology and stress. A stressor is any issue that causes significant stress beyond the normal day-to-day struggles we face. Examples include family issues, like having a parent with mental illness or substance abuse. That's a stressor. If you can't count on your parents to be stable for you, that's an extra stress. Being a victim of physical, emotional, or sexual abuse, tell somebody. That's not normal, that's not acceptable. Trouble adjusting to gender identity for teens who are gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgender. Life is hard for those kids. They face a lot of discrimination. Nobody needs to be added to that, okay? People are who they are. That's an extra stress, and they need to make sure they get plenty of support. Brain chemistry. We have these neurotransmitters in our brains called dopamine and serotonin, and there's also norepinephrine. Those are related to depression. In depressed people, those chemicals are not in balance. That's why we use antidepressants, to put those back into balance. Now, many of us are very, very good friends, and we might do everything for somebody if they're depressed, but I personally cannot change someone's levels of serotonin or dopamine or norepinephrine, nor can anybody else. There's only so much we can do. And if somebody tells you that your chemicals are out of whack, and sometimes people feel it, they just say, I just feel different. Something is not working for me. Generally, that's what's happening for you. The antidepressants will restore that balance. They are not happy pills. Sometimes you can call them, oh, that's my happy pill? That makes me happy? No, it doesn't make you happy. It makes your chemicals back in balance so that you can feel happy when happy things happen, so that you don't have that anhedonia. Warning signs of suicide. These are things when we professionals see them, we really kind of start to focus in on something. Self-mutilation, like cutting or burning. How many of you know people who cut? A lot of you. Cutting is very common. Cutting is not necessarily suicidal. In fact, usually it's not. Cutting is an attempt to cope. It's taking emotional pain that someone can't handle, and then they can fix it physically. Okay? A lot of people say cutting helps for a little bit, only temporarily, and then it doesn't work anymore. You still have your problem, and you're going to have to keep cutting. I've got some murmuring going on here. I need to stop. Fixating on death or violence through poems, art, movies, music, or video games. A little bit is okay, but there are people who it's all dark. Everything they're into is dark. Their music is dark, what they read is dark, what they write is dark, what they want to see is dark. That's a sign that that's all they can feel, that that's all they can access right now. That's a sign you want to tell somebody about. Being obsessed with weapons. Not a good idea if you're depressed or if someone near you is depressed. Unhealthy peer relations. Somebody may reject their friends as not understanding, you don't get me anymore, and they'll start hanging out with kids who are kind of self-destructive or doing a lot of risky things. It's because they feel like they fit in with that more. They're not valuing themselves much, they're not valuing their life, so they're willing to take these big risks. Okay? Tell somebody, hey, my friend has really done this turnaround, and I'm worried about them now. They're getting really self-destructive. Volatile mood swings or changes in personality. For example, someone becomes sullen and withdrawn, or angry and acting out. Now, you know your friends. You know how they generally are. If there's a change, ask them about it. Indications that a teen is in an unhealthy, destructive, or abusive relationship with a boyfriend or a girlfriend, a family member, or a friend. There is no need to put up with stuff like that, okay? You've got the rest of your life to figure out who you want to be with and who you want to spend your time with. If someone shows you who they are by being violent, believe them. Believe them. They're showing you they're violent, they're violent. Don't make excuses. Other risk-taking behaviors, being promiscuous, using alcohol or drugs, prescription drug abuse, reckless driving, crimes. Now, the case we've got going on at West, his parents have been very open about the fact that this was a kid who was experimenting with some drugs. The struggle that we have for you guys, the concern we have for your generation, what you guys are exposed to in terms of drugs is insane. Largely because of all these synthetic things that people are making up. So they make them so fast they can't get outlawed. Okay? So my understanding is the kid from West was experimenting, and this is according to what his parents have used, with K2. Most of you have probably heard of K2. K2 was legal for a while, but it wasn't legal because it was safe. It was legal because they hadn't outlawed it yet. And you've got an incense, bath salts. All of these things are coming in that kids are feeling like it's legal, it's okay. It's not safe. It's only legal because they're making them faster than they can be outlawed, okay? Don't put chemicals into your body unless you know what they are, because they're going to cause damage. Signs of imminent danger. This is when you have to hold and tell somebody. Somebody's threatening suicide. Somebody's researching suicide methods, looking for the means to die, pills, weapons, etc. Talking or writing about death, dying, or suicide. Having a suicide plan. Statements like, people would be better off without me. I'm trapped, I don't belong here. Okay? If you hear that kind of stuff or see that, tell somebody. Intense anxiety is also a sign. Acting reckless, increasing your alcohol or drug use, or expanding to different things. Withdrawing from family and friends. Somebody's withdrawing from you. Their family, they're in their room all the time. Parents will say, you know, I've never seen them, they're just in their room. And giving away prized possessions. When my son was in 7th grade down at Mission, he came home one day, he said, I'm really worried about my buddy. He brought all his CDs to school and all his football jerseys, and he's giving them away. So my son, because he's a shrinks kid, knew that's not a good thing. So he let me know. We called the school, they talked to the boy, and sure enough, he was suicidal. And he was giving away his belongings. They were able to intervene, and they were able to get him help. Bullying. These are my granddaughters. They're cute, right? Okay. The girls in the summer were building they're standing in a thing of water about this deep. They're trying to build a pool in the sand. They don't understand the nature of sand. So they scoop up a big bucket, they walk it over, they pour it in the sand, they're all excited, they run back down to the lake, get another bucket, come back over, and presto, it's gone. Their pool has dissipated. So they've been doing this a few times. They're getting frustrated, they're getting tired, and apparently they start bullying. Because the one comes to us and she's crying, and she says, Bianca just called me a table. Little kids are very, very weird, right? And she's crying. She can't believe that she called her a bad name. She called her a table. And she's so mad that now she's calling Bianca a chair. So we have a very ridiculous conversation about the fact that it is not nice to call people tables and chairs. Now, we could have said to the one, you're not a table, obviously. I brought the picture to prove to you guys she's not. Don't take it personally. Don't worry about it. But the point is, if somebody's calling you a name, if you're calling somebody a name, because a lot of people will say, not bullying, it's true. She is really tall. He is really short. She is really odd. It doesn't matter. What matters is if you hurt somebody's feelings, knock it off. If they tell you to stop, knock it off. If somebody calls you a table, and you don't want to be called a table, then they need to stop calling you that. Okay? It's not the fault of the kid being called a table to understand that's ridiculous, so I shouldn't feel badly. They get to feel badly, and whoever's doing it has to stop. And the point is, bullying is ridiculous, whether it's tables and chairs or anything else. Teens who are bullied have an increased risk of depression and suicide. Here's the odd part. Teens who are bullies also have an increased risk. It's not working out for either party. One party is feeling hurt, you're feeling attacked. The other party is attacking out of insecurity, okay? Because the only reason you bully somebody is if you're insecure. So bullying tells us much more about the bully than it ever does about the victim. Cyberbullying, just as dangerous as the face-to-face stuff. Good thing about cyberbullying is you can keep a record of it. Print it out, keep it with you. What's that number? 1-800-273-CALL. Act. Acknowledge your care. Tell somebody. Acknowledge that your friend is hurting. Show you care by listening and asking questions. Ask if they feel suicidal. You won't plant the idea in their head. It used to be that they told us, don't ever ask somebody about suicide because you're going to plant that idea in their head. It doesn't work that way. People know about suicide. A lot of people think about it sometimes. You're not going to put the idea into somebody's head. And in fact, they're probably going to be relieved that you're talking about it. Tell someone who can help. Okay? Friends don't keep deadly secrets. A lot of teens will tell somebody and say, keep it to yourself. This is a secret, okay? If you're a true friend and a good friend, you don't keep those kind of secrets. That's not going to work for you. Coping techniques. We all have problems. The question is, how do we cope with it? Talk to your friends, talk to your parents. Let's go back. Exercising, sports, meditate, yoga, reading. Introverts, reading helps them cope very well. Think positively, use humor. Fair humor, not mean to other people's humor. Listening to music, as long as your music isn't dark. Have some music that works for you when you're feeling sad, okay? Problem solving. Hobbies, fun, recreation. Journaling, writing. Journaling helps a lot of people. If you're a cutter, start journaling. Get those feelings out, and they won't be bothering you. They won't feel all massed up inside you and you'll need to cut. Get them out. Spending time with your friends is very helpful. Religious activities, praying, and ask for help. HALT. This is an AA saying that is really helpful. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Many of us make poor decisions when we are hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Alcoholics, drug addicts, when they're in recovery, they ask themselves, am I any of these things? If you are hungry, take care of it. If you're angry, address it. If you're lonely, get some company. And if you're tired, rest. Don't make big decisions when any of these apply. Take care of that first. If you are any of these things and you make decisions, they're probably not going to be good ones, and they're going to come back to bite you. Problem solving. The only way out of a problem is through it, okay? Choices like running away, drinking, smoking weed, doing drugs, being reckless, they're not going to solve the problem, they'll delay the problem. The longer you delay anything, the longer it lasts. So now you still got that problem, plus you've got the new ones, okay? I worked with a young lady once that got in trouble by her mom for drinking, so her mom grounded her. Well, there was a party that the girl wanted to go to, so she snuck out of the house, went to the party. Mom figured out she was gone. Mom goes over to this apartment complex to get her daughter. Bangs on the door, sends so-and-so out. I'm not coming out. Now the girl's got a dilemma. Her mom has figured out that she's at this party. She's got a choice. She can face the problem, deal with her mom. But she's drinking, so she's not going to face the problem. Mom says, I'm calling the police. Now the people holding the party are angry. So the girl, she could have gone out the front door and faced the problem, but instead she goes out the back door, jumps off the balcony, and breaks her leg in several places. So now she's on the ground, she's got a broken leg. Here comes Mom. It is very easy to catch someone who has shattered their leg. Then the police are called. So now the police come. The girl's been drinking. She gets an MIP. Then the ambulance comes, takes her to the hospital. She has to have surgery, and now she has 8 weeks of rehab. Guess who has to take her to rehab? Mom. Yeah. She gets all of this time with Mom. Mom has to help her use the restroom. Mom has to help her with everything, okay? I always think of that when I'm tempted to avoid a problem. I always think, oh, not just get through it. Successful people are problem solvers, not avoiders or problem deniers, okay? If you are worried about yourself, tell somebody. Tell a friend, a teacher, a family member, a hotline. If you don't speak up, you can't be helped, okay? Suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. Let somebody help you. Be honest. You will not get in trouble for being depressed, and you will not be blamed for your feelings. If you come to a professional, we are not going to say snap out of it. Don't think that way. Okay? You're not going to get in trouble. You're not going to be blamed. It's a young woman named Amanda, who several years ago, her mom knew she was depressed. Her mom knew she was suicidal. Took her to get help, and Amanda saw about 3 different counselors. And whenever she would come out, she would say to her mom, that counselor's no good. Mom finally said, why do you think they're not any good? And she said, because they didn't guess my problem. If they're any good, they'll be able to guess. Well, no matter how good we are, we can't guess. Amanda's died at 16. She wouldn't take the action to tell somebody what was going on. She wanted people to guess. Don't do that to yourself. Tell somebody and be honest. Remember, life gets better. You'll be older, you'll get independent, you'll be able to make your own choices. The way you experience life now is not the way it's going to be for the rest of your life. If it's you, remember you need professional help. Friends can only do so much, and it's not fair to expect them to make you feel better. A lot of kids do that. A lot of kids want their friends to make them feel better and say, don't tell anybody, just stay with me and talk to me and I'll be fine. That's way too much of a burden. Don't put that burden on a friend. That's not a friendly thing to do. Don't threaten suicide as a means to control somebody. Some people do this. If you break up with me, I'll kill myself. Well, that's inaccurate and it's manipulative. Okay? If somebody takes their life after someone has broken up with them, they didn't do it because the person broke up with them. They do it because they've been struggling for a long time. It's not that one thing. That's a way people in a relationship, because if somebody will come in and say, I can't break up with him, he'll take his life. Well, then tell somebody that he's suicidal and break up with him. If that's what you want to do. She wants to break up with him. He says, if you do, I'll take my life. Okay? Not taking it to them. God, you're the truth about breakups is they happen all the time. And it's up to you as an individual to cope with it or to get help, okay? But breaking up with somebody, you get to do that. You don't have to worry about their safety if you make a choice. It's what you want to do. If it's you, trust the professionals. The doctor says you need antidepressants, but your friend's mom says you don't. Trust the doctor. Okay? A lot of people come in and say, oh, you know, my neighbor said she tried that once and it didn't work. Well, maybe it didn't work for her, but that's got nothing to do with you. And you need to trust them. Don't insist you know more than the doctor because you're read up on the internet. A lot of people do that. They'll say, well, you know, the doctor wants me to take Zoloft, but I read up on that. And all these crazy things can happen. Your feet can fall off. You know, your feet aren't going to fall off. That's the story on the internet, and I don't care how many hits it's got. It's not true. Read professional things, okay? Follow through with your therapist and your doctor. It takes a while to feel better and to get those neurotransmitters working. You're talking about brain chemicals. It's going to take a while for those to balance out, okay? Give it time. Follow through with treatment recommendations and restrict access to firearms, prescription medications, and other drugs. A lot of people in this area have weapons in their home. Okay, I think it's military and hunting. And if you are depressed, you need to tell your parents, I cannot be trusted around the weapons. Okay? I don't care if they say, well, we keep it locked up, don't worry. Kids get into that all the time. You need to tell them those have to go somewhere else for now, because I don't trust myself. Okay? And I can't tell you how many suicides I've dealt with where the parent says, well, I usually lock up my gun, but I forgot to that day. You don't want to have that feeling. You don't want that tragedy happening. Tell your parents, don't trust me around the reference for it. If it's your friend you're worried about, tell somebody. Good friends do not keep deadly secrets. Care, sit with them, keep them company. Be understanding and a good listener, but remember you're not their therapist and you don't need to be. Remember you're a friend, not a professional. You can't cure depression, you can't regulate neurotransmitters, so don't expect yourself to. And more importantly, don't let your friend expect that of you. What to say if someone dies by suicide? I'm sorry for your loss. It's really the only thing that you can say that will comfort a soul. If you were close to that person, if you knew them, talk about your positive memories. People want to remember the person that they've lost. They want to talk about the good times. Let them do that. Avoid saying anything like, I understand, unless you actually do, because chances are you don't. People all the time say, I understand. And the person's thinking, well, how could you? You've never been through this. You don't understand what this is like. And a loss by suicide is different than a loss by other means. It's much more complicated. It's very devastating to go through, and there's a lot of extra emotions if it's a death by suicide. Avoid saying anything offensive about your own religious beliefs regarding death by suicide. I have been to 15 funerals for death by suicide. Priests, rabbis, pastors, ministers, I have never ever heard one of them say the deceased person is going to hell because they died by suicide. And I think that's because they all knew this person. And what they knew was this person was ill. This person was struggling. This person was not in their right mind. This was not an action that they had enough awareness of to be held responsible for that. Okay? If you believe, if you've been taught by your religion, something that they're going to go to hell, keep that to yourself. Okay? Don't put that on somebody else. They're struggling enough. They're having a hard enough time. Remember, nobody's to blame. Don't look for a reason, point fingers, make accusations. I know with the recent death in the community that that's already happening. That's natural, but you know what? It's nobody's fault. It's a tragic combination of circumstances and brain alteration. Deaths by suicide have to be handled very carefully, so a contagious effect can be avoided. No permanent memorials can be made, no ongoing tributes can be constructed, because you can't glamorize death by suicide since it can be prevented. The other thing is, in teens, sometimes we have what we call a contagion effect. One person dies by suicide, it makes other people feel like that's a way to cope. And it makes them aware of how sad they might be feeling, okay? So we have to make sure that we don't overdo something, because if this person over here is feeling ignored, and like nobody notices them, and they see all of this going on for this deceased person, they might think, well, at least I could have that. At least I could have that kind of attention, okay? So that's why they have to be very careful about it. And it's hard for teens because you want to memorialize your friend. And that's okay on a temporary basis, but that's the reason that the schools don't do anything permanent, okay? Because that's what the research tells us, not to do that, to protect the rest of you. Everyone can help prevent suicide by listening. Stop talking and listen. You all know people who don't stop talking. Even here, they haven't stopped talking. You have to listen. If you don't listen, you don't know what's going on. Accept lifestyles, cultural differences, religious differences. Now, I think East is pretty good at that. Our kids came here for school. I think you guys are very tolerant and you do a very good job of accepting differences. Stop discrimination. Teens who are physically or emotionally different deserve protection, not torment. Remember, if you discriminate, it's just highlighting your own insecurities. Personal goals. This is what you can be focused on. Continue to involve yourself in positive activities and improve your performance. Focus on being independent. What kind of life do you want for yourself? You're going to want to stay in Nebraska? You want to live in New York City? You want to go overseas? What kind of income are you going to do for that? What kind of house do you see for yourself? You want to get married, have kids? You want to be singular, live the bachelor life? Think about those things, because then everything you do is a step towards what you want, instead of simply boring. Develop your career and educational interests. Get to know yourself, your values, and your interests, okay? What's that phone number?
1-800-273-TALK!
Thank you. Live your life fully.